Hey guys and gals, JJ here with Ron's Equipment Company and Hvac JCB, and today we're going to go over the interior skid steer controls on the new 2022 models and newer. So, alright, starting over here, we do have new joysticks in the 2022 models. These are going to be the same company that makes Cat's joysticks, are making JCB's joysticks now. So starting over here on your left joystick, you've got your 2-speed controls here. So if you look up over here on our screen over here, when I push this right button on the bottom here, you can see it. It's a little bit faint. There's a picture of a rabbit on there. So when I push that button, the rabbit lights up there on the top right screen, just to the right of the windshield. You can see that now we're in rabbit or in high gear. If I push that same right button there again, we're going to go back into turtle or first gear. There's no indicator for that, so when you are in first gear or turtle, there's just no light, but that's the default that you're going to do 90% of your work in. If you're at low speeds or you're trying to move around in a tight area, if you do have it in second gear or high speed or rabbit, all pretty well the same thing there, it's not going to want to turn real well, just because it's rabbit's more meant for traveling over distances or going straight. You need a little more torque and everything if you're going to turn the tracks and turn the machine in a tight spot or anything like that, or at low speed. So back to first gear or turtle. And then on the left side over here, you can see there's a little picture of a snail there. If you hit that, you'll get the snail that'll pop up there. It'll say creep, and then it's going to give you a number. And that number is going to be controlled, and basically that's a percentage, but you can slow it way down. So that's going to be controlled by this toggle switch here. So if you push on the back side, you'll see that number is going to start getting smaller. That's going to make the machine go even slower. It'll go all the way down to 10. 10's the lowest. And at that, your machine's barely going to move. And then if you push on the top side of that button, you'll see that number's going up. And that's going to make your machine move faster, but still in creep gear. So 99 being the highest that you can go. Still going to be slower than turtle, but that's the fastest you can go when you have the creep enabled. I'll set it back to 50. And real quick, before we get any further, I do want to give a big shout out to Chris Viamonte and Jefferson Excavating LLC. He's letting us use his machine today. As everyone's aware of, it's hard to get machines in right now, just for everybody. It doesn't matter what you're selling, what line, what manufacturer. It's just hard to get machines, and that goes for a lot of stuff. Not to go too much into that, but Chris was nice enough, and Jefferson Excavating LLC, they were nice enough over there to let us use their machine to show the different controls in. Because 2022 JCB has redesigned the skid steer slightly. Not a lot of big changes. Little stuff, but it is a little bit nicer, I think, and we just wanted to go over the controls because the controls are a little bit different as far as joystick controls mainly. So that's what we're going over today. Thanks a lot, Chris. We sure appreciate it. He comes here to Hvac JCB for all of his service, and we have a good relationship with Chris, and we appreciate him letting us use his machine to show you guys everything. So thanks again. All right, now back to it. This is going to be, a flipper switch is what I call them. It's going to run your hydraulics depending on what attachment you have hooked up. It could be that it's going to change the direction of the chute on a snowblower. It could be that on your post hole digger, it's going to, if you hold it this way, it's going to spin the auger one way, and you hold it this way, it's going to spin it back the other way. So you're going down in the hole, if this is turning it the correct direction, you're digging the hole, and then as you come out of the hole, if you want to flip the dirt back off it, a lot of times you'll spin it the other way and flip the dirt off as you're coming out of the hole. This one I just showed you is going to be adjusting your percentage of creep. We we've got going into creep gear or snail gear there, and then we've got our back and forth between forward and reverse. I'm sorry, not forward and reverse. Between first gear and second gear, or low speed, high speed, between turtle and rabbit. So just depending on how you want to think about that, you know, that's generally what's going on there. On the bottom side of this remote, let's see if I can get a shot here. Hopefully that's showing it. There is 2 buttons on the bottom side of this joystick. So the back one, the one closer to the bottom, is going to be your horn. And then the top one over here is simply going to be another auxiliary control. So it just depends on what you've got hooked up and how that attachment is wired, whether these different buttons are going to control different stuff on them. But that may be something, you know, always, of course, get into a safe area. Don't have your attachments on the ground or anything like that. And, you know, try test your buttons there in a safe place where you're not going to do damage either to property or equipment or, you know, obviously people. So just make sure that you know how your attachment is going to run, because it all depends on how they're wired and how they're set up on what controls are going to do what as far as your joystick controls. Now coming over here to this side, kind of hard to see because in the sun. I'll do my best to show you the little icons on the remote or on the joystick here that you can see. So this one is going to be float for your front loader, for your loader. Sorry, I'm having a hard time talking today, guys. You do need to have a little bit of down pressure on that, and then you'll simply hit that remote, and I don't know if you can hear it in the video itself, but basically your loader arm is now in float. So what that means, if you're not familiar with that, is you've taken your arm here. Of course, JCB has a patent, worldwide patent on the single arm design. You've taken that arm and you've taken away any power to the cylinder that raises and lowers it, is essentially what's going on here. And so that arm is being controlled by the weight of the arm and gravity, but there's not actual down pressure on it and there's not lift on it. So this is particularly helpful if you're back dragging. You know, a lot of times when you're doing dirt work or you're spreading rock or whatever the case may be, you know, and you're trying to get a nice even grade on it, you're going to dump your material at one end and then you're going to go past the pile with your bucket. And obviously on the JCBs, if you've got the teleskid like Chris does, you can boom out to go past the pallet or past the pile. Once again, guys, I can't talk today. I don't know what's going on here. It's Friday. I guess that's it. And you're going to you'll put your arm into float like we have it now, and then you can pull the pile with you as you go back, or your rock or your dirt or whatever you're using, and you're gonna pull it with you, and your arm is gonna follow the contour of the ground. And so, you know, I'm trying to describe this to you guys in a way that if you're an inexperienced operator, if you haven't done this a whole lot, you'll kind of grasp the concept of what I'm trying to convey to you here. If you didn't have it in float, let's say you don't have it in float and you're trying to control it with this joystick. Obviously this joystick is going to control the arm up and down, as you can see here. That's pretty simple. Pull back to raise the arm, push forward to lower the arm. If you curl the joystick to the inside towards the operator, it's going to curl your bucket back. Move the joystick to the right or to the outside, it's going to dump the bucket. So if you're trying to back drag something and you're using the arm itself, you're using hydraulics to do it, you know, let's say, just so you can see a little bit better, I'm going to boom out here. That way you can see it a little bit better. But let's say I'm using the hydraulics and I don't have the arm in float, and that's how I'm trying to back drag my material. You know, so I might angle the bucket down, something like that. Obviously, he's got a tooth bucket on here that he just purchased from us. But, you know, if you had a straight edge bucket, that would obviously be more ideal for back dragging. But, you know, you put the bucket down, and then as I'm backing up, if the machine goes over a bump or into a dip, you know, either way. You know, if you go into a dip, it's obviously going to lift the arm up, and so you're not getting an even spread on that material. You know, you're going to leave a little bit of a hump there of material because your arm has raised, because it's hooked to the machine. And so as the back of the machine goes down into a dip, your arm is naturally going to do the opposite and go up a little bit, which is going to leave you a high spot in whatever material you're back dragging. And then the opposite would be true if you were back dragging and you went over a bump and the back of the machine goes up. That's going to make your arm go down, and you're going to end up taking a little bit more out of that spot as you're going over that bump than what you've done either before or after that spot of where you're back dragging. So the advantage of putting your arm into float, and I'll show you that again here. I'll raise it up, set her down. You do have to have the bucket, you know, on the ground with a little bit of down pressure on it, and then you'll push this button here, and I hope you guys can hear it, but I don't know if you can or not, but you might be able to see it a little bit in the video here. Boom. Now we're in float. So now the advantage to that, with it in float, you can still move your joystick out to create, you know, dump, which will give you, you know, basically I'm curling it out here, I'm moving the joystick out, so it's going to tip the bucket forward, and then I can do the opposite. I can bring the remote in if I want to flatten it out. Those two functions are still going to work with the arm in float. Now, if I were to pull back on this to raise the arm, that'll immediately kick it out of float, and it'll be back to having hydraulic pressure. But back to my point here, now if I'm back dragging and I have my arm in float, it doesn't matter if I go over a bump or into a dip, because the arm isn't rigid, so to speak. It's going to follow the contour of the ground. The bucket will stay, you know, either flat or at an angle, however you have it set. It'll maintain pressure with the ground regardless of whether you go through a dip or over a bump. So that's when you're going to want to use your float function on your skid steer. I've had customers also use float if they're moving snow and they've got a snow blade on there. I can understand why they would do that. You know, it's obviously probably going to give you a little bit better, I'm trying to think of the word, consistency, if you will, with your plowing. The issue with that being, and I've seen it happen, is when you have the arm in float, and if you do have a snow blade on there, you have a lot of weight on the cutting edge of the snow blade and on your skid shoes. And so you will wear through those a lot quicker on that type of an attachment if you have the arm in float when you're using it, because you have all the weight of the arm, your blade, whatever you have on it, is all that weight is basically on your skid shoes and on your cutting edge. And so they burn through cutting edges and they burn through the skid shoes real quick on their snowblower. So, I mean, I would recommend not using float. You could hear it right then, just real quick. You could hear it, that little click, or I don't know how to describe it, but kind of that click or whatever. I can't think of a better word for it. That click that you just heard, that was me taking the arm out of float by pulling back on the joystick right here. So the joystick is now back out of float into normal operation mode. But back to what I was saying with the snow blade, I understand why they put it in float. To do that, you are going to get a little more consistency for just the reasons I was just describing when back dragging. You know, if you go over bumps and stuff like that, your snow blade is going to maintain the same contact with the ground throughout plowing. But the downside there is that you're going to burn through your cutting edge and you're going to burn through your skid shoes really fast. So I would recommend not using it in float for that particular application. I would just, you know, set your skid shoes and everything to the height that you want, to where your cutting edge is where you want, whether you want the cutting edge actually touching the ground or you want it, you know, in 1/16 of an inch off the ground or whatever. However you're wanting to do that. People have different ways of plowing snow, obviously. But I would recommend leaving, you know, using the arm itself and not putting it in float so that you don't have all that weight sitting on the skid shoes and sitting on your cutting edge if your cutting edge is making contact with the ground surface. So just a little tidbit there that, you know, I've seen come up with different operators and just different ways of doing stuff. But enough of that, back to our controls here. This button here is going to be how you're going to turn on your constant flow on the machine. So if you are using a broom or a snow blower or a post hole digger, something that is continually turning, and you're using hydraulic fluid to turn the attachment, then, you know, instead of sitting here and holding your flipper, you know, one way while you're blowing snow the whole time, you can turn on what they call constant flow, or a constant flow of hydraulic fluid to the attachment. And the way you're going to do that is with this button here. Now, real quick, up here on the right side screen, you can see that this button here, number 0, it's got this little green light on right above it. This is your auxiliary hydraulic lockout button. And so with that button on, you cannot enable high flow. Okay, you also would not be able to run your flipper over here. It's not going to do anything because your auxiliary hydraulics are locked out, so it's not getting any flow. So you need to make sure that that button is off, and then at that point you can turn on your continuous flow. I'll turn it on just for a second so you guys can hear it, hopefully in the video, but you will hear it in the operator station. When you turn this on, you're going to know. And you don't want to leave this running if you don't actually have an attachment on there that you're feeding hydraulic fluid to. So I'll turn it on just real quick so you guys can hear it. There you go. It gives you even an audible beep, and I immediately turned it back off. So that's what that button is for. Right there is continual flow for hydraulics. Like I said, if you're running a broom, a snow blower, post hole digger, trencher, anything that's taking a constant supply of hydraulic oil to rotate something on your attachment. This button right here is going to be for, again, hydraulics, different hydraulics on different attachments depending on how they're wired or set up. That'll control that. And then there's also this same button, you know, is going to be basically a two. I mean, it is kind of a 3-position toggle, but you can't lock it into any of the positions. On the bottom, you have the exact same thing on the bottom side of the remote here. And you can kind of see, I mean, you can only see my finger in the shadow, but it's the same toggle as on the bottom. And again, that's going to be for different hydraulics on different attachments that you put on the front of the skid. And then, of course, only on the teleskids, this toggle switch right here is going to run your boom in and out. So you push forward on that, and your boom will extend. On the 3TS, like Chris has here with Jefferson Excavating LLC, pull back on that, and that brings the boom back. It's going to extend 3 feet. On the 2TS, it's going to do 2 feet. So, continuing, we've gone over everything as far as joystick controls. So, continuing around the cab, you do have a foot throttle here, as well as a hand throttle here. You've got eye. You can go through different settings here. So you can see all your different options. You can see how many hours are on the machine. You can change your modes here. You know, going through mode 1, 2, and 3. You can change those however you see fit. Generally, the way that we'll set the machine up is mode 1 will be kind of your least aggressive, or, you know, almost like a tight spot, tight space setting to where the machine's not going to react real fast. It's not going to move real fast. Just going to kind of be slow and steady. And then we set them up to where mode 2 is kind of a medium, and then mode 3 will be, you know, machine has basically full acceleration, full top speed. You can change all these different settings, how quickly your joysticks are responding to or how quickly your machine is responding to the input you're giving it with the joysticks. You know, so how quickly the boom goes up and down, how quickly the bucket curls and dumps. All that can be changed on these new models, and you can change them. It's basically a percentage, almost like that creep percentage that I showed you earlier with the snail. You go in there and you change the percentages for the different modes. So that's what it's showing you there. But like I was saying, you know, you can see all these different things. The idle is going to be turning that on and off. So let's say that I have that selected on, okay? Where this is more going to come in handy is, especially if you are running mainly on the foot throttle. You know, that's generally the way that I like to run them, is foot throttle more so than hand throttle, but to each their own. But if you are running, I think it's more handy on foot throttle than anything. And basically, so let's say I'm doing a job, I'm working, you know, I'm constantly giving it different amounts of foot throttle depending on what I'm doing and where I'm traveling, etc. If it doesn't receive any foot throttle response for, I think it's 15 seconds, then it's going to kick the machine back down to an idle. Sorry, it's not the foot. If it doesn't receive any input on the machine as far as arms, curling and dumping, any kind of controls, then it's going to kick your machine back down to idle. So it's almost like a fuel saving feature, is what that's going to be. Sorry, I accidentally hit the stop record button there halfway through. So I'll leave that off the way he had it set. I don't want to adjust his settings. Foot off, this is going to be smoothing out the foot throttle, you know. So if you're where that would be handy is if you're on really rough terrain. It's not going to be jumping the throttle near as much up and down as your foot is obviously going on and off the throttle. It's just more of a throttle smooth out when you're using the foot throttle. Here is the screen, and this would show you if you had the check engine light on or something like that. It'll show you the different codes that are stored in there. Engine hours, and then we're back to mode 3. So that kind of goes through that. Starting here, you obviously have your parking brake. Anytime you lift the lap bar, that parking brake is automatically going to come on. You can put the lap bar back down, but the parking brake's not going to shut off until you physically turn it off. Same thing with the left hand joystick armrest. As soon as you lift that up, your parking brake's going to come on. So you set it back down, it doesn't automatically turn off. You've got to come over here and push the button in order to turn it back off. So real quick, these different numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. Those don't necessarily mean anything unless you put the immobilizer on. So if you are in a high crime area and you're worried about someone stealing your machine, in addition to having to turn the key on, you can set an immobilizer and have like a code that you have to enter in order to actually start the machine. So where we're at, that's not a big concern. I don't know that I've ever had a customer do that, but you know, different areas require different things. This 1, 2, 3, that's going to be your work lights. If you press it once, your front work lights on the top of the cab are going to come on. If you press it twice, front and rear will both come on, and then push it again and they all come off. Real quick with the rear work lights, anytime that you pull this joystick back, the left joystick, anytime you pull it back and you hear that backup alarm start dinging, then your backup lights on, or your rear work lights come on automatically. So just something to be aware of. And I should have gone over it earlier when I was going over the left joystick, but obviously this joystick is going to control your tracks or your tires. So move it forward, machine goes forward, pull it back, machine goes backwards. Obviously you move to the left, you'll turn slightly to the left, move to the right, you'll turn slightly to the right. And this is only when you're using ISO controls. I'm sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit here, guys. But as different stuff comes up, I'm going to kind of show you different things. So as you can see over here on the left panel, top left, you have ISO and H pattern controls there. I don't know what's going on with my camera. It must be dirty or something. I don't know why it's so fuzzy, but you can tell what's going on there. In ISO, the controls, as far as left joystick is going to control the tracks or tires, right joystick is going to control the loader. That's how it works in ISO, which is what this machine is in now. You can switch it to H pattern. You do need to turn the machine off and then turn it back to accessory mode. So the engine isn't cranking. On the key, you can see when the key is straight up and down with this line here, that's accessory. And so you still have electrical power, but the engine isn't cranking or running. And with it in accessory mode, you can come over here and hit H pattern, and then you start the machine, and now you're in H pattern controls. And what H pattern controls are is, you know, a lot of your older skid steers all ran on H control or a mixture of H control and foot controls. So in H control, both joysticks are going to control the transmission, so your tracks or your tires, and both joysticks are going to control your loader functions. So you will push forward and back on both joysticks to control the machine. You know, you'll push them both forward and you'll drive straight forward. You pull them both back and you'll drive straight backwards. If you pull the left joystick back and the right joystick, you push the right joystick forward, you're going to turn to the left. And if you push the left joystick forward and pull the right joystick back, you're going to turn to the right. So more of like your old school crawlers, you know, they kind of run on that same principle. And then doing your joysticks, you know, in and out on either side, that's going to both raise and lower the boom itself and curl your bucket. And I honestly don't hardly ever run a machine in H pattern. I'm just more familiar with ISO. So that's generally what I put it in. But, you know, that's the beauty of these machines, is that, you know, if you do have different operators running the machines, different guys might be used to different ways of controls. And so it gives you the option to run either, which I like. Sorry about that little detour there, but going back over here, so we've gone over the lights. 4, 5, 6, this is going to lock out, like in ISO control, this is going to lock out this right joystick. So with that on, you can see 4, 5, 6, that one's lit up green. I can do whatever I want with this joystick, and nothing's going to happen with the machine because that's locked out. That joystick's basically dead. There's no power to it. The machine's not responding to any control you give it there. So push that again. Now this joystick is live. If I pull back on it, it's going to raise the arm. All the controls are right back live. So that's what that's going to do. When you would use that, you know, if you had a precarious load and you're traveling with it and you don't want this joystick to accidentally get bumped or something and affect your load, then boom, you just push that. That green light comes on, and you know that even if this joystick gets bumped, nothing's going to happen. Your load is going to stay right where it's at. All right, 789, this is going to be parallel lift or self-leveling loader. So let's see if I can demonstrate this here for you. Let's just make it painfully obvious, okay? So right now, parallel lift is off on this machine, okay? And I have the bucket at a pretty severe angle dumping. And so now when I raise the arm, the bucket maintains where I have it set at. So it's still pretty well dumped there. And it's not going to change anything. Okay? So now I'm going to level the bucket out. Alright, so my bucket's level on the ground, right? Now I'm going to turn this feature on, and now as I raise it, it is using, a computer system basically and sensors to keep that bucket level no matter what height I have it at. So it's adjusting it with the computer to keep the bucket level. So, you know, if you're doing hay or something like that, and you're stacking hay, or you're loading a truck, or you're unloading a truck and stacking it in your hay shed, whatever you're doing, and you don't want to, you know, you just want to, it's really speed and ease of use is what you're doing here. So now you don't have to worry about you know, either curling or dumping your joystick, or your bucket with your joystick as you're raising or lowering the arm, because all you have to do is pull back, and you know that load or that bale of hay is staying level on there. And you push forward, you know it's staying level. So maybe this is a better way to show you here what we got going on. So that was with it on, obviously. It maintained level no matter where it was at. Okay, so I'm going to turn it off. Okay, I'm picking up a bale of hay, and it's sitting on the ground, okay? So I've stabbed into it with my bale spears, and now I'm going to raise it to stack it on top of the others on top of the pile. Okay, now I'm not going to either curl or dump the bucket. I'm just going to pull back on the joystick without the self-leveling loader feature active. You can see right there, it is off. Okay, and so I'm going to raise this, and you can see it's kind of hard to see. I'll hop out so I can show you here real quick. But because that self-leveling isn't on, the bucket just stayed in the position it was at when it was flat on the ground. And so it was hard to see from in the cab, but as you can see here from outside the machine, now that bucket is tipped back a long ways because of the geometry of the arm, and that's just what happens as you raise it. Now, as I set it down, it's going to be flat back on the ground, but it obviously didn't maintain flat throughout the lift. And so that's what your self-leveling loader is doing. You know, you don't have to have it on. You could obviously be dumping the bucket as you're raising it to maintain level, but with the self-leveling loader, it does it for you. So that's the advantage, and when you would want to use that particular feature on the machine. You know, and I apologize if some of this stuff is very basic. I know we have guys out there that have been running skids longer than I've been alive, and I'm probably doing some stuff wrong or telling some stuff wrong, but I'm just doing my best to try and give general information to people that maybe don't have as much experience. So just bear with me. This one here is going to be your auxiliary lockout feature. So we went over that a little bit earlier. You can't turn on constant flow. You can't run, you know, your post hole digger or whatever you've got on there. None of your hydraulics are going to work going to your attachment when this light is lit up. So I turn that off. Now I've got hydraulic flow going to my attachment when I select, you know, whatever function I have on my attachment. Now I've got hydraulic flow to it. So when you would want to use this is, you know, if you had a mulcher or a mower, or, you know, anything that is, you know, a little bit dangerous, and you don't want it kicking on when you're not right where you're wanting to do work, you're having to transport it or just move it around, anything like that, you can turn that on, and that way, even if something gets bumped, the attachment isn't going to turn on and start running. So safety feature, JCB's big on safety. I dig that. You've got a hand throttle here, so a lot of guys like using the hand throttle so they're not having to constantly give it input with their foot. I like foot. All driver preference, operator preference. You do have a rear view mirror right here above the windshield, and then you do have the little cutout in the ceiling so you can see when your loader's up in the air, etc. Real quick, you know, once again, jumping around. This is the jump around video, I guess. The biggest thing, I guess the two biggest things on why operators switch from other manufacturers into a JCB. Number one, I hear it all day, every day. Side door. People are tired of climbing in and out over the bucket. You know, especially as guys get older, and gals. You know, I use guys loosely as a term for everyone, so hopefully I'm not offending anybody. But as people are getting older, climbing in and out over the bucket just becomes more and more cumbersome. So number one feature on the JCB, side door entry. It's a lot easier going in and out the side of the machine than it is crawling in and out over the bucket. In addition to that, it's also safer. You're never getting out underneath a suspended load You know, sometimes jobs that would take 2 guys because you've got, you know, pallet forks on there or some kind of load on there, and you know, you have the arm slightly elevated. A lot of the machines nowadays, the front door opens out like this, and so depending on if you have something there, you know, if you have pallet forks and you got something stacked up on there, you can't actually open the door unless you have the pallet forks either all the way down or all the way up. You actually can't get in and out, so you may have to have 2 guys to do a job. Whereas with the JCB, it doesn't matter what you have on the front. If you have it up in the air or down on the ground or anywhere in between, I can still get in and out the side door. And so I don't have to have somebody. I'm not going to be trapped in the cab, and so I need a second guy to do some work out there that I can't get to while I have the load on. I can get in and out the side. Easy peasy. Problem solved. The second biggest thing with the side door and the single boom is visibility. I mean, you can see way better out of the JCB than you can any other skid steer I've ever been in. I mean, it's not even close. And sometimes I take that for granted and I forget about it until I get a trade-in and I go to move it around the yard or something. And number one, I got to climb in and out over the bucket now, which is not a lot of fun. It's kind of a pain in the butt. And then I'm sitting down into a cubby hole, and I've got arms coming up at least half of the window on either side, and I can't see a dang thing out of it. You know, I mean, it's way more dangerous. I can't see people around me. I can't see other machines and equipment and just, you know, general things that might be around me. I can't see them nearly as well as I can out of this machine. So I'm sure you guys are tired of hearing me talk about that, but it really is a huge benefit to the JCB, and I'm going to tell you about it because I love these machines and I think they're the best machine on the market. But enough about that. Let's get back over here to the controls. You've got a radio, obviously. Here it is Bluetooth on the 2022s. They're all Bluetooth radios, but they do obviously give you an aux. So if you want to plug it in with a cord, you can do that there. Over here, top left, you've got your hydraulic quick attach. So looking right down here on Chris's bucket, you've got that red plunger right there. And that's your indicator for whether or not you are attached to your attachment. So I'll show you, I've got it on the unlock button right now. Give me just a second here, guys. What's that?
I was just looking at this door.
Gotcha.
They said it's a little different.
Yeah, a little bit different.
Yeah, they didn't see you in here.
Oh yeah.
Tell you, good hiding place.
That's right. That's Matt.
Yeah.
He's our store manager, checking out the new door at JCB, and I'll go over that at the very end here. But on that red plunger, that's showing you whether or not you're attached or not. This button here, you're gonna push it and hold it, and you'll see that plunger come up out of the hole. Boom. Now your pin has pulled out of the bottom of the bucket on both sides, and you can easily detach from your bucket or your pallet forks, whatever attachment you've got on there. And then when you get, you know, hooked up again to your bucket or whatever you've got, you'll come over here. You've got the lock just right below the unlock, and keeping an eye on that plunger, push and hold the lock button, and that plunger goes right back down. So there you can see it. Up on the arm a little bit, sitting too much on the ground. There you can see it, the plunger's all the way down, and now you're locked into your attachment and it can't come off there. So that shows you that. Your next button's here. This one is going to be your smooth ride system, and so what this is doing, with that activated, you turn that on. Oh, sorry, I've got the auxiliary hydraulics here. Let's see here. So you got to come over here, turn that off, turn that on. Does that not want to work? That's the way it goes sometimes on my videos, guys. Figuring it out as we go. So where this is going to come in handy, oh, I think I know what it is. Well, turns out I don't know anything. I'm going to have to actually read the manual. I could have swore. It wouldn't be a fun YouTube video if I didn't have to figure something out on the fly here. And I've used this feature in the older models. I don't know that I've ever used it in the newer ones. I'm not beating some kind of a qualifier just right to turn it on. Real quick, while I'm trying to figure that out, you'll know what features your machine is equipped with based on whether or not these lights illuminate. So anything that's illuminated, the machine has that feature. So I can just hear somebody on the internet now saying, well, it's probably not turning on because the machine's not equipped with it. Well, it is equipped with it. I just don't know how to use it. Well, I'll come back to that after I've had a chance to do a little bit of research of how you turn it on. But basically what that feature is doing, the smooth ride system, is basically putting your arm into almost an like a suspended form, if you will. So if you're traveling with a heavy load, you know, you've got a couple bales of hay on there, or you've got a full bucket of rock or something like that, it's going to give your arm just a little bit of suspension to where the arm is going to give a little bit. It's not going to be just straight rigid. It's going to give a little bit as you're going over rough terrain, so that it's not beating up the operator near as bad and not being as violent of a ride as if you didn't have that feature on. So that's a creature comfort. Big fan of it, and JCB offers it in a lot of their machines, as do other manufacturers. This is going to be your reversing fan for your radiator. It's going to run automatically about every 15 minutes, and so it's just going to reverse the fan, just like it sounds, on the radiator, so that it'll blow out any debris that is sitting, you know, on the top of the radiator or anything like that. But let's say, you know, I was just loading a bunch of hay and I saw some, you know, little pieces or whatever come off and land on the back on the radiator, and I just want to blow it out right now. You push that light comes on, and that's how you know you're blowing out the radiator, and then you can turn it off. Otherwise it'll do it automatically every 15 minutes or so. Getting towards the end of our controls here, this little symbol here is going to be your high flow. So depending on what attachment you have on there, you know, it may either run on standard flow or high flow. And this one's important. You never want to give an attachment too much fluid, because it's not going to be able to handle it. You'll probably end up, you know, blowing a seal or something like that if you have a standard flow attachment and you're running it in high flow, or you know, your attachment isn't going to run real well if it's meant to be at high flow and you're trying to run it on standard flow. The other important thing to remember, especially, you know, really only with the teleskids, is that when you boom out like this, you cannot run anything on high flow. You can only run standard flow with the boom boomed out. Your high flow, you can see it right there, your high flow fittings don't boom out with the boom. Your standard flow fittings are on this piece over here. You can't see them because the boom's in the way, but they are sitting over here. They're mounted to that piece right there. And so your standard flow fittings are booming out with the boom, and they still have power to them. As soon as the boom starts booming out, these fittings, your high flow fittings, are not getting any power to them. The power is shut off to them. So even if your hoses were long enough and you boom this boom out and you have something high flow that you're wanting to run with the boom out, you're not going to get any hydraulic flow to it. That's designed that way by JCB. They don't want anything ran on high flow with the boom out. To run your high flow, you have to have the boom sucked all the way in. You can run standard flow attachments with your boom out, just not high flow. So that's important to remember. Also, when you're hooking your hoses up for your attachments, make sure if you're going to be running them with the boom out, two things. Number one, make sure that it is a standard flow attachment. You're only going to be able to run them with the boom out on standard flow like we just talked about. And then number two, make sure that you're plugging them into the standard flow side, which is the side that is attached to that plate right there, and will slide out with the boom. I've had several customers, by mistake, have the boom in and hook up some kind of hydraulic line going to an attachment to the high flow, and then boom out, and it ripped the hose. So just be real careful about that. And then the other thing is your electrical connection. So that one's a little bit tougher. There may be some standard flow attachments that do need an electrical input, and so you need to make sure that you have enough electrical cord, if you will, to run that extra 3 feet when the boom is boomed all the way out, because otherwise you'll rip out the connectors and everything on your electrical side when you go to boom out. So amazing feature from JCB that it booms out, but just stuff to be careful about that you wouldn't necessarily think about with other skids because they can't boom out. So just wanted to go over that. But to turn on your high flow, so if you do have an attachment that needs high flow, you're going to turn it on right here. So let's see here. You're going to push that button. Oh, sorry. You got to first lock it over here. Then you push this button. Oh my gosh. What is going on here? This is fun. I just did this not that long ago and it worked just fine. Oh, I know it. Duh. I literally just told you guys why that won't work. The boom is out. So high flow will not engage. Even up here. You cannot, you can see it. It lights up for a second and then immediately turns off because the boom is out. That was a real dumb moment for me. So glad you guys got to be privy to that. So boom all the way in. All you have to do is hit that. And now as you can see, it stays lit up and we are in high flow. So if you do have an attachment that takes high flow, that's how you turn it on. Now with your auxiliary lock on, you can still turn it on, but it won't actually start working. Even if you flipped your flipper or whatever, or you try to turn on your constant flow, none of that will work with this auxiliary lockout on. So turn that off, now your high flow will work. And then to turn it off, simply push it again. Or you can boom out, because as we just saw, that's how you turn it off too. HVAC controls, obviously AC, that's going to be off. It does light up when you have it on, a little snowflake lights up. Fan speed, low, medium, high, and off. And then temperature control. These two red handles here, don't ever pull on those or open them. This is for your emergency exit. So this front window, obviously in the JCB, your normal exit is here on the side, coming out the door. This front windshield, if you were to, worst case scenario, tip the machine and it's stuck on the side and you can't get out there, that's when you're going to flip these two. Top one's going to, bottom one's going to whoop, and then that glass will basically just fall out. And then you can crawl out the front of the machine. This is going to be your windshield wiper control. Push it once, and it just runs. Push it down, and it squirts. You can't really see the squirt, but it did squirt. Sorry, I didn't have good enough camera work there. Lots of vents, making it easy. Stay cool or warm, depending on the weather. What else we got in here? I'll hop out real quick so you can see a couple of other things. The door is now different on this. I'll shut it off. So they've redone the door on these brand new 2022 machines. Let's see here. So, and I'll show you, I've got another one sitting inside here where I can show you the difference. A used 3TS sitting right behind it. So on these new ones, this door is just going to open about halfway. You can see, and there's a little split here. Give me just a second. Okay, wait for just a second. Sorry, I'm just shooting the very end of this. You can see there's a little split here, and the door will open actually almost exactly just shy of 90 degrees on that split, giving you really good access to the inside of the cab. The other thing I want to show you here on the side of your seat now is where your heated seat control is going to be. And then you've got this yellow lever here is going to control the tilt on the backrest. And then you've got this bar is going to slide just the seat assembly, leaving the armrests where they're at. And then this very bottom one will slide the complete assembly, seat, armrests, everything, front and back. So, you know, that top one is nice, you know, depending on, you know, different people have different lengths of arm. So you can adjust that and really fine tune it to where it can be very comfortable for the operator. So that's really nice. But yeah, those are the big differences on the 2022 model. The updated joysticks, the doors are slightly different. Here real quick, I'll show you the door on the previous generation. So you can see on this one, the door is one piece. There's no little break in it. And it opens like 45 degrees off that rear hinge. So I like the new door a little bit better. New controls a little bit better, but overall, just a great JCB teleskid. So hope you guys enjoyed the video and like something. Sorry, this one was a little jump around. Couldn't really talk as well today. I don't know what's going on. Friday, like I said. So thanks, guys. All right, guys and gals, real quick to finish up this video. Last thing, I got Justin here. Just teaching me everything I need to know about life.
That's right.
And a little bit about skid steers. So he's showing me what I was doing wrong with that smooth ride. On a smooth ride, you do have to have the bucket all the way down. Real quick, we'll show you the difference. So he's got smooth ride off right at the moment.
You just go down real quick. See how jerky that is?
And you put the loader all the way down, not the way I was doing it, because I don't know what the heck's going on.
Then it's on. It's on the green light. Green light, smooth
You
ride
can
is
see
on.
it, just barely. Smooth ride's on now. You see what I was talking about with suspension on the arm. Significantly better. And same thing when you're traveling with a load or anything, your arm's taking some of that shock out of the machine. So that shows that. So I'm glad we were able to figure that out, and Justin can help us and teach me something today. So there you have it. Thanks for watching, everybody. All right, sorry. I'm going to do one more installment on this video here. I got Justin out here now, so I'm going to have him help me show you guys self-leveling, because it's kind of hard to see from the cab. So is self-leveling on or off right now? On. It is on right now. So all he has to do is pull back on the joystick, and you'll see that the tool carrier or the, you know, your bucket, your hay forks, whatever you have on there, is going to level itself as it goes up. So it's maintaining level as it goes up and as it comes down. The 3TS is the only one that'll do it on the way down as well. The other JCBs, the parallel lift will work on the way up, but not on the way down. So just something to keep in mind. Now he'll turn it off, and he'll raise it up, and you'll see what I was talking about, where the loader or your tool carrier does not level itself. And so the higher up you go, the more and more backwards your load is going to tip. So that's what the difference is there. So it's way easier to see from outside the machine. You know, I tried to show you as best I could from inside, but way easier to see from the outside. So there you have it. Okay, I swear that's the end of the video. Thanks, guys.